New data is out from the Labor Department, and it shows inflation ticked up last month. The Consumer Price Index rose by nearly 3% in August from the year before, and in just 1 month, inflation increased by 0.4%. Economists expected the inflation rate to rise as President Trump's sweeping tariffs push prices higher. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. And Kelly, as we mentioned, economists say this inflation increase largely they're driven by the president's tariffs. What kind of products are seeing the biggest spike?
So when you look at the products that are impacted by the tariffs, in this particular report, you saw apparel, tools and hardware, living room furniture, motor vehicle parts. Those are things that we are getting from other countries. And then one that you and I drink a lot of, coffee, right? That soared 21% on the year. Yeah, you can see that on the chart right there. So that was a really big one. That being said, there are other areas that drove the price increase that have nothing to do with tariffs, and that would be shelter. That would be some of those food items outside of coffee, as well as energy. And so I think the really important takeaway here is the basic necessities also got more expensive, but not to the extent that this is a runaway train. I don't want anyone to think that we are back in the summer of 2022 when you had inflation above 9%.
Now, I know we're talking to you about CPI today, but there's been just a slew of numbers that we've discussed recently. Disappointing jobs report that was last week, lower producer price index, PPI, for August, and inflation, of course, does continue to tick up. When you look at all of these figures together, how is that going to impact this big Fed decision next week in terms of a rate cut?
So we're going to get a rate cut next week. I've been saying this, right? So you can have me on the record here. But what I did think was really interesting this morning is the inflation numbers came out and there was like, oh, wow, inflation is going up. How is the Fed going to feel about this? Seconds later, unemployment claims for the week came out, and it was the highest number that we had seen in nearly 4 years. So more people are filing for unemployment. So what the Fed is going to do is going to say, okay, all right, we've got inflation in our sights, but we're going to focus on the labor market. That's why we are expecting that rate cut next week.
And possibly more than just one by the end of the year.
That's true, but more inflation data will come out over the next few months, and they're going to see how tariffs are impacting that.
I'm sure we'll be talking plenty. Kelly O'Grady, thank you very much.